Hello out there, and welcome back to the Prog Hat channel. Now I'm going to kind of get right into it. I am doing a thread response to Stephen Schnee, the CD Junkie, great channel, uh, um, 80s tag, music from the 80s tag. I kind of just I don't remember the whole title. I just put 80s tag and I wrote down the questions and my responses. But I want to recommend his channel because he has shown a lot of music of groups that I knew of from the 80s, but I didn't really pay attention to them or listen to their music. A lot of the groups, and I'll show an example of one and mention some. But I did listen to a lot of 80s music. It helped me to get through the 80s and through hard times and stuff. And I remember when I started working, I couldn't wait to get my paycheck so I could run down just like Stephen Sneed and go and buy me at the time records, cassettes. I bought cassettes of some of my favorite albums. I just couldn't wait, and I would listen to the stuff that I previously bought from previous paychecks. And when it came down to that time, I was ready to get after it again. Man, those were simpler times. I was living at home, didn't have to, pay for bills, grocery, do all those grown-up things that I have to do now. So I do recommend Steven's channel. Go and check it out. I've been watching it, and he does videos, a lot of bands, lots of stuff that I like I said, I heard of these bands, but I never really listened to their music from the 80s. And I'll give an example, like one right here. I remember this band, the Smiths, Joy Division. I mean, the list goes on. The Church. There's just so many great bands of the 80s. There's like a lot of great bands in Prague that I never knew of. So it went further. So here's a band that I've gone. I found this used. Can't get these price stickers on this. I just left them with the bonus track. This is Echo and the Bunnymen. This is their album Ocean Rain. I love this album. Really, really, really good record. And so now I want to get. I don't know how I'm going to collect the Echo and the Bunnymen. I had a few records, but I gave some of those away. I think I'm just going to go for the CDs on some of these bands because they added a lot of great bonus tracks. So the first question, let's get after it. And that way I don't get just to rambling. What was your favorite genre of the 80s? Man, I was all over the place. And some bands I never got into, like the Jam, bands like that. But I was into synth pop, new wave, and heavy metal. I'll show a few examples of things I was listening to and that I still listen to and enjoy. Like, how about this? 4 and 4. I love this album. This album rocks. I love the saxophone playing in Urgent. It's killer. This one comes with a couple of bonus tracks. I love this CD. I was listening to The Fix, Reach the Beach. Great album. Saw them in concert. Blew my mind away. Then, like I mentioned, I was into some heavy metal. Iron Maiden. I believe this album came out in 1980. This is a reissue. I love this record. I love this record. Judas Priest, Defenders of the Faith. This is an epic, all-time favorite. I got to give it a hug. Oh, man, I love this album. So I did listen to a lot of metal, heavy metal back in the 80s, and still do listen to a lot of that stuff in the 80s of heavy metal. I remember getting into Iron Maiden on a blind buy, and that was the live EP, Maiden in Japan. I bought that, fell in love with the band, the music, and I've been a fan ever since. They continued to make music a few years back. Senjutsu, if I said that right, which is kind of has some prog elements to this album. Well, and I'm doing that, showing that because some of these artists are still making music. Okay, the next question: show the album or artist that got you into the genre of the 80s. Music that you are going to focus on your video. I'm going to try to focus on there. I wanted to mention the Talking Heads, but they came in like much later of the 70s, before the 80s. But they're one of my favorite bands. I have one album, and I'll just show it right now, from the 1980, Remain in the Light. I love this album. It's just killer. This album right here got me into the gateway of going to listening to Eno and ambient music, and we'll get to some of that later. Electronic music. This is such a great record right here. Really recommend that. Now, the band that got me more into the 80s, which I gotta say, I didn't venture off into more of these other bands that I'm going back to and listening to. And big fan, one of my all-time favorite bands of the 80s, that's the Cars. I'll show my collection real quick. Shake It Up, probably my second favorite album by them. Love that record. Candy O. Love that album. Love this artwork. I found another copy of it for about $1, so I picked it up. It's in great shape. Their debut. Another album that I like was Mutt Lange as producer. It's a great album. Here is my favorite album of theirs. My brother brought this home, and I simply got more into the Cars, more into 80s stuff, music, and it was this album. This album to me has a dark edge to it. I just love Touch and Go. This is produced by Roy Thomas Baker, who also did Queen. Misfit Kid, Up and Down, Getting Through, Don't Tell Me No, Give Me Some Slack. Give me some slack, folks. Okay? This is a killer record. I love everything about it. The artwork. They came out with this with, I believe, Rocktober, and I'm going to get the Rocktober version of this album. I love it. I'm looking for this on CD as well. I got to mention this album because Rick Ocasek put out another great album in the 80s. Some may say it's like a Cars album. Beautitude, if I'm saying that right. Folks, check this record out. It's killer. I even have the second album of his. I couldn't find it at the moment, but yeah. Love this album. Great album. Okay, third. What is your favorite year for music in the 1980s? And I did like Stephen Schnee. I went with let me see if I can find one of the records I was going to show. Okay, here we go. 1985, the year I graduated from high school. All those years ago. Wow. Well, these were albums three, and I could show a lot more, but I picked three. Brothers in Arms. I love this record. I still listen to this very day. I will say it's underrated. A lot of albums sold a lot of copies, and some of them are still underrated, in my opinion. I love this when this came out. Prince, Around the World in a Day. This was the follow-up to after his album Purple Rain, and I couldn't wait. I remember reading stuff. It's coming. When it came out, I love this record from beginning to end. And how about this? The Cure. I love this album. The Head, On the Door. Very dark album. I love the artwork. Spooky as hell. Love this record. I forgot to mention some other bands back from the 80s that had good albums. Let me do that real quick. I'm sorry. I'm going to get back to the question. Box of Frogs. I love that record. How about these guys? These guys could rock. The Romantics. Yeah. 2 good records. Another one of my favorites. But the Little Girls Understand. The Knack. There's some power pop right there. I love this album. Okay, now back to the questions. Which format did you prefer to collect in the 80s? Like I mentioned, 7 inches. Not 7 inches. I mean LPs, excuse me, and cassettes. And cassette singles were the things that I bought a lot of. And it was like it is like then and now. It's whatever is in my budget. It's not about the format. It's not about the records. or vinyl. It's about the format. What I can afford, what I loved. I want to hear the music. You know, like I want to hear the music that I really enjoyed growing up listening to. Who were your favorite artists of the 80s? Well, I just showed them right there. The Cars. I am a big fan of the Cars. I don't have Door to Door, but I plan to get that either on CD or vinyl, whatever I can find. Kind of jumped ahead from that to that because I answered it kind of early on. Show an album that you felt was underrated in the 80s and you like to encourage people to check it out. Well, there's two of them, and I don't mean to just, you know, I would say these two. I think people should check these albums out. I know I hear people say, oh, that's when I stopped listening to them. Oh, I never really liked that band because of blah, 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 blah. Whatever, you know, whatever. That's your spiel. These are the two albums I'm going to say, oops, as I go upside down. 1984 by Van Halen. Dire Straits, Brothers in Arms. Killer record. Eddie Van Halen introducing a lot of synthesizer work. The man's a genius, guitar wizard. We're not going to ever have an all-time third great guitarist. In my opinion, the top two for me, Hendrix, Eddie Van Halen. But this album is so good. I really encourage you folks to go check out the last two tracks, Girl Gone Bad and House of Pain. Those songs rock out. But those are the albums that I picked that are underrated. I know I was supposed to just show one, but I encourage you to go check those out. Revisit those albums. You know, like when you go and revisit an old friend. Okay, moving right along here. Show an album that you liked or loved in the 80s, but you actually appreciate it more than ever. Good one, good one. And you know what? I would have to go and say, I appreciate this album more and more by Yes. 90125. Am I saying that right? I always get those numbers right. Yeah, 90125. When it first came out, I listened to this relentlessly. Then I go back and I listen to it and I really appreciate this record. It has prog elements, and it does have some great pop rock moments in this album. This album is just very done well. Great comeback for that year for Yes, and just a killer record in my opinion. Name an artist that became popular in the 80s that you felt still is creating music. Okay. Now, I'm going to take that on, and I'm going to say, let me see here. I got everything kind of scattered everywhere. Okay, here we go, folks. Sorry for the little pause there, but I thought so. I was going to say Paul McCartney, and he's created a lot. Yeah, Paul McCartney. I will say Paul McCartney. One of his albums, I know people say, oh, press to play, and give it all kinds of, excuse my language, shitty names and whatever they want to call it. Press to Play was an excellent album. I look forward when I remember when it came out. Has Pete Townsend, a lot of great folks. But McCartney still kept on making music. Who knows? We might get another new album from him. I like Egypt Station. I like New. And I like McCartney 3. Enough said. And you never know, he might do another one. Another band, artist, was Yes for me. And I just showed 90125. They're still making music. Look, Big Generator. I love this album. There it is. Press to Play. I'm kind of all over the place, folks. I'm excited about doing this tag. Look at this here. Yes. Going back to Yes. This is a really cool Yes box set, Essentials. They kept on making records like The Ladder, Talk, Open Your Eyes, Magnification. They even throw in a live at Montreal 2003 performance. And they made Heaven and Earth. which different lead singer on here. I like this record regardless of what people say. You know, I stopped listening to what people say back when, yeah, it's been a long time. So what is it? And then here recently, Mirror to the Sky. I love this record. So those are two artists that I appreciate their music. I look forward to their records, and I think they're going to continue to make music as much as they can. Show an album, CD, or box set of an 80s album or an artist that was released in 2023. Well, I hope this is correct. I didn't really look this, but I pulled it out. This might have came out 2022. Yeah. Sorry, folks. I was going to just say this. This is 2022, so this is what I'm going to show for that question, number 9. This is Kiss, Creatures of the Night, double disc. This too comes with rarities, outtakes, creatures of the some live snippets. But hey, I like this album, so that's what I went with. I don't think I didn't think to really look into that. I just grabbed that, to be honest. Show an 80s album that influenced you to pursue different style and genre. Well, I would have to really go and say there's 2 of them, and I'll show them again. Like I mentioned early on, these 2, Remain in the Light. The Cars, because of that dark synthesizer, and you got all kinds of this album done with working with Brian Eno, made me go listen to more like dark style top 80s band. I don't have music by Bauhaus and those kind of bands, but or the Jesus and the Mary Chain, but I plan to go get some of their records. And I veered off here years back listening to ambient music and that kind of electronic music, which I really enjoy. I know people think, oh, just albums for sound effects. No, they actually mean something. They're actually saying something. You might not get a lot of people's artwork and their art, but it's actually really saying something, you know, like abstract art. But yeah, these 2 records right here. Let's see here. The bonus question. Show an album that you feel would be essential to anyone wanting to get into the 80s music. You know, honestly, I thought about that. I would say this. And I say this because of the great guitar playing of Elliot Easton. That guy's a wizard on guitar. And this has guitar, great drums, great vocals, bass playing, synthesizer. I think those kind of elements, where if you go listen to this album, you would go and listen to other things that have that are what do you call it, synth pop oriented, power pop, dark synth, you know, would get you back into listening more, or your gateway into the 80s, and that you will go and listen to those other bands, the Smiths that I mentioned, Echo and the Bunnymen. There's just a lot of great. There's another band, I was trying to think of their name, The Clean, maybe, you know, The Clash. I'm just saying, folks. There is my video response. I didn't think I was going to go this long. Well, it's done. I don't edit it. I'm just going to load it up. Go check out Stephen Schnee's channel. Like and subscribe his channel. Hope you enjoyed this video. Take care, everybody.